As spring training continues to move on down in West Palm Beach, there is one position battle that I don't think people are really necessarily paying too much attention to, but I think it's starting to get hot.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. Later on in today's show, we're going to kind of get into a crowded outfield situation here. Who could be the first one cut, DFA'd, optioned, whatever it may be? I think this answer may surprise you. I'll discuss that later on in today's show. Also, the Nationals made their latest and first round of roster moves yesterday. There is a couple of big names as well as some prospects in there as well who were optioned down to AAA. We'll kind of discuss those and what their future could be holding in AAA Rochester and as well as the major leagues. And when could they be making their debuts? We'll discuss all that later on in the show. But first and foremost, let's get into the second base position. Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So now let's get into it. As Luis Garcia, you enter opening day, or spring training rather. Luis Garcia was going to be the opening day starter at second base. We've all kind of expected this now. He was the opening day starter the last few years. Luis Garcia is a fine prospect. He's had his moments of being really good. He's also had his moments of being really bad. Let's just call it as it is here. Now we kind of go into camp here. And we talked about this a lot on yesterday's show with what Luis Garcia and kind of how he hasn't really had all that great of a camp. It's been, again, this up and down kind of don't really know what to expect with Garcia, but ultimately, he has not taken this job and run with it like a lot of people anticipated. And it's not the fact that he's got a ton of competition there. You have your first round pick from the Rule 5 draft, Nasim Nunez. If he's going to be on this national team, he's going to have to make the major league roster. And if you kind of don't really know too much about Nasim Nunez, I can tell you this, his bat is not major league ready. Let alone it wasn't even AAA ready. That's why he never was above the AA level with the Miami Marlins organization. He's a fine prospect, but still, Luis Garcia, the proof is kind of in the pudding at this point. This is going to be his fourth, fifth year up in the major leagues. You've kind of known what to expect with him starting from day one when he was called up in 2020. You knew that he was going to be a hitting first kind of guy, but ultimately he hasn't really been hitting that consistently up in the major league level. His approach has been all off. And also this quote from just a few days ago, David Martinez, after he got picked off at first, after leading off the fifth inning with a single, he was asked about it. And he said, "That's dumb." I mean, it really is. You shouldn't get picked off there, so I'll talk to him about it tomorrow. It's no outs. We get to start our inning. He gets on base for us and then he gets picked off. That can't happen. It can't. I think we're starting to kind of realize that Luis Garcia is not in the good graces of the Washington Nationals. And I think that's probably the way that we should be thinking now. Now, what are the other options right now? You have Nasim Nunez, who right now, he's either going to make the major league roster or he's going to be set loose and go back to the Miami Marlins based on the Rule 5 draft. Or on the other hand, you have a Trey Lipscomb, in which, by the way, he's not just a second baseman. This is going to be someone who you're going to move all the way around the diamond. Now, Trey Lipscomb may be a stretch. We've kind of talked about this a lot on the show and why I think Trey Lipscomb could be a fast riser into the big leagues. It's not necessarily about what Trey Lipscomb can do. It's about what Luis Garcia can't do. And what he can't do is take this second base job right now. Luis Garcia is a fine prospect. I was rooting for the kid. He's got a good hit tool. He puts the ball in play, and at times it makes you feel comfortable a little bit. You see the development. You see as to why the Nationals are high on Luis Garcia at times. But then also you see the other side of the coin. Getting picked off at first base. Lousy base running. poor defensive miscues, all the different things that kind of catapult Luis Garcia into not being a lock on this opening day roster. Luis Garcia is fine. He's a decent player. But I think at this point, if you're really going to be kind of honing in on him being the second baseman of the future over the next 4 or 5 years, however many years it may be, I think that's a little bit silly at this point. And Davey Martinez, while he's not saying that, you can see it within his answers. Those are pretty tough and harsh quotes for spring training. To quote, say, that's dumb when getting picked off at first base. This isn't the first time. This isn't the second time. Hell, it isn't even the third time. There is a lot of opportunities in which Luis Garcia has had to take this roster spot, run with it, and start on an opening day. I just don't think that's the case anymore. Now, going forward, do I think the second base position is going to be up for grabs? Absolutely. I think second base, Luis Garcia on game 162 this year, wherever it is, October 1st or September 30th, whatever day that is, I don't think Luis Garcia is going to be your starting second baseman on that day, and it ain't because of injury. I think someone else is going to come up and take that position, whether it is a Trey Lipscomb, whether it is Nasim Nunez, or hell, even a Jake Alou at some point, or maybe a Nick Senzel. Maybe you move him over to second base. I don't think it's going to be Luis Garcia. I think the Nationals are going to have some better option at some point in time, and maybe it is Darren Baker. They've tried him in the outfield at this point. He's more so of a middle infielder, but it could be Darren Baker as well. There are a lot of options in which I think the Nationals are going to explore. Now, on opening day, is it a lock for Luis Garcia to be the opening day starter? No, not one bit. And it's not because Trey Lipscomb is going to be pressing the gas, trying to get that second base job. It's not going to be because Nasim Nunez is so good defensively that the Nationals are going to put him out there and forget about the bat. I think it's because of the fact that Luis Garcia is not going to take this job and run with it. And that is what the Nationals want to see. You could have Luis Garcia come off the bench. That's not a big problem. Luis Garcia coming off the bench, have some pop off the bat. That would be fine. I wouldn't be upset with that. A left-handed bat coming off the bench, someone who you know could probably hit a ball out at any given time, have that sneaky pop with them. Luis Garcia could do all that. But at this moment, his biggest issue is that he has not been able to take and fully grasp what opportunity he has right in front of him. Meanwhile, you see other guys like Trey Lipscomb, who's moving all over the diamond, who won a gold glove down in the minor leagues last year for being a great utility man. And you see him being moved around all over the place, from second base to shortstop to third base to the outfield. That's invaluable to a team. It doesn't matter how young he is. It doesn't matter that he was just in Double-A this last year. I'm not counting him out just yet. Because if you've seen him down in the majors in spring training, the Nationals think highly of him. He is a pretty special defensive talent that maybe Nasim Nunez is that as well, but ultimately his bat is going to carry him a lot further than what Nasim Nunez will. Now, making a prediction, a way too early prediction right here on March 12th, 2024, is Nasim Nunez going to be the opening day second baseman? I don't necessarily think so. I think it's probably going to be Luis Garcia. And even then, at this point, Nasim Nunez, kind of seeing him up close and personal, while he's a solid talent defensively, you see as to why the Nationals took him so early in the Rule 5 draft. You can also see there's a lot of struggles within that situation there. His bat is not good. Not good. It's not going to play up in the major league level. What's going to carry with him is his defense. But on the other hand, with Trey Lipscomb, his defense, while it may not be as polished as Nasim Nunez, it's pretty damn close to being as good. And also, his value comes in other quantities, not being the silky smooth middle infielder. It's what he can do elsewhere, kind of move him all over the place and be that ultra utility guy. Think of a Danny Espinosa back in the day. Someone who can play second, shortstop, third base. Really, wherever you put him, he's going to thrive. That is kind of where I think of a Trey Lipscomb type. His bat, he's got some sneaky power. He can put the ball in play, and he's got some pretty good control when he's up at the plate as well. So Trey Lipscomb, if it was up to me, if I was Davey Martinez today, I'd be making Trey Lipscomb the opening day second baseman. But ultimately, I don't think they go that route. I think they're going to stick with Luis Garcia because if you haven't noticed, the Nationals, they're a very loyal organization. They've done it over the years with Patrick Corbin starting on opening day, when we all know he's not the ace of the staff. They do it out of respect for him. I think Luis Garcia is going to start on opening day, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if he were to lose his job to Nasim Nunez or even Trey Lipscomb by that time. But ultimately, I think by the summer, that is when you'll see Luis Garcia take the bench spot, come off the bench, go against right-handed pitchers, and that'll be that for the kid. It's unfortunate, but he just has not taken the job. And so far, I don't think it's a lock for Luis Garcia to be your opening day second baseman. Not yet. I haven't seen enough from it. Luis Garcia, good talent, but ultimately, it has never just clicked, and that is what we want to see moving forward. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. That is where you'll find your latest Nationals video content. Of course, just search Locked On Nationals, hit the subscriber button, as well as wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On podcast, where it's your team every day. Next, let's get into some Nationals roster moves, as they've made a series of relatively interesting news, but some big names, including guys we talked about on yesterday's show, were just optioned to AAA. What's going to happen moving forward? We'll discuss that after I tell you guys about our good friends over at PrizePicks. And you may be wondering, what is PrizePicks? What can I do? Well, PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Football season may over, but the action on the floor is heating up, whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Want to play alongside some of the PrizePicks favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab on the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moment in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. So players and stat you're selecting, highlights you're winning for PrizePicks, how fun and simple the experience of playing the game. And of course, you guys got to try it out. And when you do that, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Search Locked On Nationals there. Hit that subscriber button. That is where you'll find your daily Nationals content over in the video form. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. Whatever you may do, just thank you for listening. The Nationals made a series of roster moves yesterday, sending down some top prospects down to AAA, optioning them as well. Now on that list, Yohan Adone, Cole Henry, DJ Hers, Mitchell Parker, Amos William, Jake Alou, and Thaddeus Ward. I'm going to start with the two kind of surprising ones, in my opinion, Jake Alou and Thaddeus Ward. Now, Thaddeus Ward, David Martinez, it sounds as if they're going to be stretching him out to be a starting pitcher down the line. That is where Thaddeus Ward was originally drafted last year in the Rule 5 draft. He was taken from the Boston Red Sox organization, recovering from Tommy John surgery, was relatively impressive back in 2022, selected by the Nationals first overall in the Rule 5 draft. He was fine last year, ultimately got injured in the summer, and the Nationals just shut him down for months on end there. You all kind of know what happened. It really wasn't that serious of an injury, I had to bet, but kind of the way baseball works. You can't just option guys who are in the Rule 5 draft. They have to stay on your major league roster for the entirety of the season. And if guys get hurt like that, they'll usually just kind of shut them down and just kind of leave them there, have them rehab down in AAA, rehab, quote unquote. So that's what happened with Thaddeus Ward this past year. he's going to be stretched out as a starter. I think this is kind of an interesting development because last year you kind of saw Thaddeus Ward. Number one, he's got the stuff. I've always kind of said this. Thaddeus Ward, I don't think he's going to be some world beater, but I think he could be a guy eventually. I'm not saying he's going to be a starting pitcher for this Nationals team, but I could see them if you develop him correctly, if you kind of get the tools and get a hands-on kind of activity with him. I think Thaddeus Ward could be a reliever down the line. But I think the interesting fact is they're going to be stretching him out as a starter. And again, this is where he thrived in the Boston Red Sox organization, was as a starter. Now, Thaddeus Ward is not going to be your middle of the rotation guy this summer. He's not going to be that kind of guy. But I do think Thaddeus Ward is going to provide some value to this team out of the bullpen eventually, whether it be in that kind of Jordan Weems kind of role where you're the seventh inning guy, the setup to the setup man kind of activity there. That is where you could see Thaddeus Ward play well and hopefully pitch well. Ultimately, though, it is kind of a little weird, in my opinion, considering who's going to be taking Thaddeus Ward's role. Now, I'm not saying Thaddeus Ward really had a role in this bullpen, but who are they going to kind of tip the cap to? At this point, you have Tanner Rainey coming back. He's going to be in the back end of that bullpen. Hunter Harvey coming back. Kyle Finnegan coming back. You got a lot of different guys who are coming back. But you're also losing guys like a Carl Edwards from this last year. He's no longer within the Nationals organization. Okay. What do you do then? You have a Thaddeus Ward kind of slip in and be that kind of guy who comes up and eats some innings. Because that's kind of where I see Thaddeus Ward ultimately. Coming out of the bullpen, eating some innings out, similar to what he did this last year. But I think this is interesting that the Nationals are trying to go with him or go forward with him as a starting pitcher. I don't think it's going to be something that, again, you see by midsummer where he's going to be starting every 5 days. I don't think he's going to replace a Jake Irvin. I don't think he's going to replace even a Jackson Rutledge down the road or hell, even a Trevor Williams down the road. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think what the Nationals want to do is prepare him as if he could be a starting pitcher. And then once he gets back up into the majors, that is when you see him come out of the bullpen, eat some innings, and then maybe can carve out a better role down the road. But at this point, he was probably one of the more intriguing options going down to AAA outside of Jake Alou, another utility man in which, by the way, just kind of thinking of this off the cusp, Jake Alou being sent down, he was kind of your ultra utility guy last year. He could play second, third, left field, really kind of anywhere around the diamond. He was going to be solid, not really all too great, not really special. He had a nice hit tool, put the ball in play ultimately, but you kind of know what you're going to get with Jake Alou. Now this kind of resides with what Trey Lipscomb and the role that the Nationals want to see him play. That's a little bit intriguing. And by the way, it is a little bit surprising to see Jake Alou get sent down to AAA this early. Now he's 26 years old, one of the veteran guys down in the minor leagues who's been within the national system for quite some time. I think this is not nothing. I don't think this really means nothing for someone like a Trey Lipscomb and as well as Nasim Nunez. Now, if the Nationals already cut Nasim Nunez, then that'd be a pretty epic failure as far as a Rule 5 draft goes. But now with this, it kind of opens up the possibility for someone like a Trey Lipscomb. Optioning Jake Alou to AAA, he's going to be up in the majors at some point this season, just with injuries coming. David Martinez even mentioned that in his press conference yesterday when talking about these latest roster moves. But I do think this opens up the possibility for someone of that utility kind of caliber there, whether it is a Trey Lipscomb, whether it's a Darren Baker, someone as kind of that category. I think that's kind of an intriguing move for this Nats team to make. Now, does this necessarily mean that it's going to be Trey Lipscomb? No, but the Nationals are kind of showing their cards here. You're moving Trey Lipscomb around the diamond, playing him in the outfield as well during spring training, playing him all around the infield. Jake Alou was kind of that guy last year. Is it going to be Trey Lipscomb moving forward? Well, let's have to see what they do, but it wasn't just that the Nationals did. They also optioned Yohan Adone, Cole Henry, DJ Hurst, Mitchell Parker, and Amos Willingham. First, let's start off with Cole Henry coming back from thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. TOS is a tough injury, but Cole Henry has looked really good so far. David Martinez talked about it as well. He's going to make his debut at some point this season up in the major leagues, whether it is a starting pitcher or a back-end reliever. I think Cole Henry, if he is healthy and you get kind of your top production from him at times when he was a second-round pick at LSU, This is going to be an impact kind of player. I'm not saying he's going to be some world beater down the line, but I do think this is someone who could be a very reliable arm moving forward. And if you look at the numbers from before he was injured, it's some really good numbers down in AAA or down in AA, down in single A as well, and low A Fredericksburg. He's done really well. And his strikeout rate in particular, I care about my strikeout rate if you're an everydayer. It's really good. He gets a ton of swings and misses. He pounds the zone at times, but ultimately, he's got to stay healthy. That is what will happen. But if he does stay healthy, you're going to see him up in the majors at some point. And then DJ Hurst, left-handed pitcher, someone who, again, pounds the zone, gets swings and misses. DJ Hurst, the issue with him is that he walked about 5 batters in 2 innings. He's got to find the zone. He's going to have to control his fastball, control his changeup. You saw DJ Hurst just airmail one the other day, and that kind of just shows you he's a very raw product, but you do see the potential with him. I think the Nationals, they do have him right now as a starting pitcher, but going forward, he's probably going to be coming out of the bullpen because the lack of consistency with pounding the zone is a little bit concerning, but it is kind of intriguing to see that he's going to be going down to AAA at some point. He's going to be pitching some impactful innings for them, and if he does find a groove in AAA, you'll see him up in the majors probably by midway this summer. That may be friendly, but we'll just have to see. Yohan Adon. He was sent down to AAA. And of course, Amos Willingham and Mitchell Parker. Again, Mitchell Parker, another left-handed pitcher in this organization that the Nationals are high on. We talked about him yesterday about how he's had a very impressive spring training. I would say Mitchell Parker, again, will be in the majors at some point this year. 24-year-old, was a 5th-round pick, I believe, back in 2020. It's a guy. This is someone that the Nationals are very high on, obviously. It was a little bit surprising to see him sent down this early. I thought he could have made a push to kind of be on this opening day roster, maybe back into the bullpen kind of guy. But obviously the Nationals, I think they have bigger plans for him. They want to see him be a starting pitcher most likely. That is why you see him get sent down to AAA in option. But Amos Willingham, back into the bullpen kind of guy, will be a lifer in the bullpen most likely. He was optioned down to AAA. We'll see what the Nationals do with him moving forward. But thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. Next, which outfield could be optioned or cut for this team moving forward? I'll discuss that after I tell you guys about our good friends over at Amazon Fire TV. And guys, you may be wondering about all the NCAA tournament coming up or whatever it is with opening day. Let me tell you that Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as a Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created a Fire TV channel to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive in to all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Search Locked On Nationals there. Hit that subscriber button. Is it possible for the Nats to kind of make a surprising move in the outfield? So if you kind of look around, after Eddie Rosario was here, Jesse Winker was signed to a minor league deal as well right before spring training started just a handful of weeks ago. Lane Thomas is one of your better players, your back-to-back MVP on this Nationals team. He's not going anywhere. Kind of look around the diamond. Stone Garrett, he's coming back from injury. He's not going to go anywhere after an impressive 2023 season. Coming back from injury, he's going to be on the major league roster whenever he's ready to go. So here are the locks, in my opinion. Lane Thomas, Eddie Rosario, Stone Garrett, Jacob Young, maybe. Outside of that, you know who was not included in this scenario? Victor Robles. Now, Victor Robles, again, is the king of killing the ball down in spring training. If you look at his spring training numbers, he's always got like a 900 OPS. They talk about how his swing is different this year and how he's simpled his approach up and just covered up and taped up some of his missing pieces at plate. But ultimately, I would not be surprised at this point if Victor Robles is going to be the odd man out of this Nationals outfield. I don't believe Victor Robles has any options left to be sent down to AAA. And of course, the Nationals do owe him a few $1 million this year. It is more than likely that this is going to be his last season here in Washington, D.C., as the Nationals have another ARB deal coming up this next offseason with him. I don't think they're going to pick it up. I think they're going to cut him, DFA him, and move on from Victor Robles. But I would not be surprised if they just say, you know what? We're done. Victor Robles, thank you for 2019. You've been one of our better prospects. We've tried with you. You've done well with us. You're a good guy, good clubhouse guy. We wish you all the best, but it's time to move on and see what the future holds for us. Because, again, we've talked about it a lot this spring training and how much the future matters within the Nationals right now. You see guys like Elaine Thomas. He is certainly going to be your starting right fielder on opening day, barring any injury. You see guys like Jacob Young. The Nationals seem very intrigued in him. He played solidly in center field last year, and also the stolen base threat and really just the baseball IQ seems to be there for someone of his caliber. You also look at Eddie Rosario, someone they did just sign to a minor league deal. It's a major league deal, in my opinion. He's going to be your starting left fielder on opening day unless Stone Garrett comes out of nowhere and gets back to being 100% healthy. And then also down in the minors, you have James Wood. You've got Robert Hassel. You've also got other guys down there who are ready to make their debuts. I could see Victor Robles being the odd man out at this moment in time. Now, is that the smart thing to do? Maybe not. Maybe you want a veteran guy who's been within the organization, who knows the ins and outs, who knows where batting cages are set up down at Nationals Park, who knows where the tees are hidden down in the batting cages at Nats Park, who knows where the bubble gum is in the clubhouse. Maybe you want guys like that, and maybe that is of value to Davey Martinez and the staff. But I would not be shocked at all if you see him gone. I really wouldn't. And really, that's probably what should happen if we're being honest. Because I don't really have interest in seeing someone other than a Jacob Young in center field, if I'm being honest. I really like Jacob Young. I think what he has shown us down in spring training is exactly what he showed us in his limited time up in the majors this last year. Again, the Nationals, they showed their cards about what they think of Jacob Young this last year. He went from high A Wilmington all the way up to AAA, up into the majors, and had a pretty good stint in the major leagues last year. He's not going to be your big-time prospect, someone who you're really going to account for, but the baseball IQ is there, number one. The position flexibility in the outfield is there, number two. The speed is there. Really, all you want is within Jacob Young. You don't really have power there, but it's whatever. I would not be surprised if Victor Robles is going to be the guy to get DFA'd or maybe try to trade him off and get something in return at this point. I would not be surprised one bit. And it's not because of Jesse Winker. I think Jesse Winker will likely be the odd man out in this organization and probably get sent down to AAA and see what they can do down there. And then, of course, he'll probably make it up in the big leagues again at some point this season. But if it's Victor Robles, you're not going to hear complaining from me. Victor Robles had the opportunity to run with the center field job. He's had so many opportunities to really kind of just be better overall. The time is now for Victor Robles, and if he's not going to do it now, he's not going to do it later, as we've kind of learned over the last 4 or 5 years. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, the Nationals play again today. You will not want to miss it. We'll talk about that game on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals right here, right now. I'll catch you on the flip side.